I'm extremely thankful to the organizers for this wonderful opportunity to be with uh, Ashok Gopal, who is a dear friend of mine now, but it doesn't prevent us from having a kind of objective conversation on this book, which is what he really welcomes. And within a short span of time, I was able to go through this book. I got the sense of, the significance of historical research. Although I myself is a researcher in history, but mine was mostly confined to Kerala. So, but I just now when the organizers gave an introduction, they said this is a kind of conversation where some of these regional narratives will also figure in. But I think the best thing will be to first go to the significant questions that this book opens up. And now somebody has cut into our time, and that was the most horrible thing that can happen to anybody. And anyway, so we will cut into somebody else's time if we are provoked enough. But otherwise, as a teacher of history, I will be within the time.
You have 50 minutes,
so with
sir?
this, so as I said, this is a
you get full 50
book.
minutes. You have enough time. You get full 50 minutes, sir.
50 minutes. All right. Thank you very much. And hold on to that.
Yeah.
So the yes, we do have a lot of biographies and other critical writings on Baba Sahib Ambedkar, and I just want Ashok Gopal to reflect on the ways in which he gives a very different take on these questions. For example, I mean, connecting it with the contemporary questions that all of us face in India. One of the things could be to talk about, for example, how significant is the notion of dignity that Ambedkar has advanced through his writings, through his life and examples, which in fact was a bombshell as far as the traditional Indian society is concerned. In fact, this book begins with reflections on that and ends with a possible future and an intellectual history of this kind of notions in India. And before I pass it on to Ashok Gopal, I just want to say that this is the finest intellectual history of Ambedkar that we are having now. So that will be the point of departure as far as this particular work is concerned, and it is an invitation for us to take part in it. Thank you. So my reference point was to how you look at this question of dignity as a researcher in the area of Ambedkar's thoughts and actions. So
Thank you very much. And to repeat the point,
yeah.
it's a fat book. Yeah, and to just continue a bit about the point you said about eating our people eating into our time. That was one of the, apart from human dignity, Ambedkar also struggled with the notion of equality. Yeah. And we all know that some people are more equal than others. Yeah. So, and we continue with the feudal mindset, and we saw the example here right now with us. One man, so again we saw a man talking continuously. There is no dialogue. You listen, you take him for whatever it is, and you go home. So there is the basic notion of a democratic process itself is destroyed in whatever happened. Of course, this is also part of democracy, that people talk and you have to take it as it is and react in the elections. Yeah, but to come to the point about Ambedkar as the point that you had mentioned. So my objective was very simple, is that to project Ambedkar as not even project, he was, but it is not recognized that he was a great thinker. He was many things. He was many things. Unfortunately, he was many things. So, the fact that he was an original thinker, and according to me, the most important thinker of modern India. But of course, we can have differences on that. So, to project the idea of Ambedkar as a thinker is that then but then we face certain problems. Is that one is that he is not a grand theorist like Marx. So grand theorists have their attractions. So he's not a grand theorist. Also, he was a thinker in politics. So he didn't get the enough time as much as he wanted to develop many of his ideas. He had 2 years. He was also running a movement. Also trying to earn a livelihood. He had no Tata Birla to fund him. He was struggling against ill health. So we have a problem of understanding his thought in the sense, what are the central ideas in it, because he never got the time to put it down except maybe in the last work, Buddha and his Dhamma. So yes, when you take the whole picture, and we have to make the picture out of it, there are bits and bits. And so we get the notion of human dignity as the foremost or the absolute value of a human being as one of his fundamental propositions, because he didn't believe in God, and he did believe in religion, which is a complicated matter, a religion without God. So, and as I think you might have read, that it's very significant that in the first public movement that he was involved in, the famous Chaudhar Tank march, people go to drink water and then they come back, then they are beaten up. So that was atrocity. But he wasn't too perturbed about that. It was like normal. What really pissed him off was that after a few days, they organized the purification of the tank. So which means fundamentally saying that these are fundamentally, intrinsically impure people. And that was something he had to reject, and of course, and then he tried to find out the roots of where this comes from, where this thought comes from, where this bizarre nutcase idea comes that fellow human beings who speak your language, who will live in your village, and you treat them as non-human. So that is so human dignity comes to Ambedkar in that angle, that he is not just asserting the importance of dignity, he is also pointing out the absolute low value given to human dignity in our society, which we know continues, which is there all over, it's a daily occurrence. It's like human life and human personality is a very dispensable kind of commodity. So that is one, and of course he also, going forward, he built this notion of Maitri, of fraternity, that he was positive looking. With all the bad experiences he had, he was forward looking. And then he dreamt of a different kind of society. So I thought that all those aspects I've tried to bring about, along with a life story has to be told. Because as we realized while working through the book with Anand, my publisher who's there, that many people outside Maharashtra don't know basic things about Ambedkar. Many things, So some facts about his life had to be also brought in. So it became, so there is a biographical element also, and then there is his thought also. So that is how this, what you call, portrayal of his intellectual stand, that is how it has been, I have tried to capture in this book.
Thank you. That takes us to another aspect of the whole thing that we really want to bring in. So at a certain stage of this book, you actually referred to how Ambedkar becomes an emancipator through his practices. Yeah, so that role of an emancipator, he just doesn't assume in his own way, but that is connected with, as you use in this book, a Marathi term, Chalwal. I don't know if I pronounced it
Chalwal,
correctly.
movement.
Yeah, so it's about, let's put it in a social science category as social movement kind of thing. So here is a very interesting coupling of this, the notions of social movement, and then how it informs this whole emancipatory discourse that he had developed. As I just want you to really foreground, as you have just mentioned about this Chaudhar tank issue and all that, So where you have this whole question of emancipation comes in, and it goes squarely well with the question of that purity, impurity kind of stuff. Although I guess you don't toe the lines of classical Indian sociologists who use those categories, but you have been saying that there was an effort to re-inscribe the untouchable body as pure.
Yeah.
So this is something I think very much central to this project,
Yeah.
even as he has this whole notion of a godless religion. So you have emancipation on the one hand, and then that is built into the whole idea of how you think about an untouchable body, which was in the traditional notion the site of pollution and
Yeah.
all that.
So there is a small but very significant detail. Finally, when the conversion is going to happen in Nagpur, so people are told to do certain things. So one of the things is that they have to wear clean white clothes and come for it. So I mean, of course, there is a connection in the sense Buddha's lay followers were were identified by white. That there is a historical connection, but it is more than that. It is like, and then what happens? So they come wearing white clothes. They have to wear white clothes and come. So that is affirming the intrinsic purity. And then the oath that they take, I mean the oaths many would be aware about. One of the oaths is that from today I am reborn. Today, I know. So it is like, this is beyond history or something, This is like a human being says, to hell with whatever has happened. From today, I am a different person and I choose to be this way. Yeah? Pardon? Yeah. So this is the use of symbolic. So there is a lot of use of symbols also in his movement. But of course, it must be pointed out that he was a reluctant organizer. He was not really cut out for political mobilization and organization building, and he didn't leave much of an organizational legacy. He preferred reading and writing, but because of his position in India at that time, he had to take on this burden. And there are times when I have quoted him, there are times when he says, I want to get out of this, I want to go back to my books and my writing. But he didn't have the choice. He had to lead a movement which, against his, so to speak, because he was not in the position where the Congress, if one leader goes, there are hundreds others. In his case, he was the sole spokesman, so to speak. The term was used with reference to Jinnah. But anyway, he was the most articulate person. So that is again a reflection on our society that, intellectually, in a way, it curbed him also, no? In a way. I mean, of course, his thought developed through the movement, but the movement, he had to lead the movement also. So these are some paradoxes we see in his life. Yeah.
Okay, that will lead us to some reflections on the pedagogical aspects of the movement, even as he was, as you said, a reluctant person. But then they take on these questions, by the larger society, because part of our problem also has to be there in the contemporaneous, or the contemporary situations of the movements that drew their inspirations from Ambedkar's kind of legacy.
Yeah.
So there is a pedagogical aspect to that.
Yeah, talking of pedagogy, there is one part. So he was, so if you finally want to define him, he was primary, like he's an educator. So he did set up colleges and all that. But so even in the movement, what is his main role? He is not getting into the business of, fixing up the pandal and getting the crowd and all that. That was done by other people. But he is writing these articles in his Marathi journal saying that, what are the issues involved. And these are very complex articles in Marathi, even for today's audience. So he's constantly, I see his effort, like even these later books on Shudras and who are the Shudras and untouchables and all that, it is always a effort to raise important questions, provoke critical inquiry. So this was his basic. I don't know how good he was he was as a teacher. He was also a teacher in law college. We hear that he was a very good teacher, but those were technical subjects. So he, in the movement also, he is like an educator. He is not the mobilizer. The mobilizing was done by other people who had a better grip on the what you call local situations and the local dynamics and all that, you know. Because each of the things involved, you know, basic things like getting a piece of land to, you know, organize that meeting, and then he he also he faced this huge problem of Savarnas coming and attacking, you know. So at that time itself, in 1927, he organized a sort of a protection force. So there was a protection force he organized about people who would stand around wherever the events were held, just to prevent the audience from getting beaten up. So this was also something that he had to do. You can't. I don't think there's any parallel to it in pre-independence India, that a political leader has to organize his own protection force to get beaten up, not by the British, but by your own people.
So that's a very significant observation, which actually takes us to the ways in which, for example, Baba Sahib himself problematized this politics. And at some stage in your book, you talk about, for example, his training in, political economy, sociology, social anthropology, and a host of other disciplines, including economics.
Yeah.
So that gave him a very substantial grip on the kind of things that were developing in India at that point of time.
Yeah.
So this actually probably defined the kind of politics which, even as you said, there was a deficit in terms of mobilization of a social movement. But these intellectual resources were mobilized in such a way that he could really bring about a qualitatively different kind of politics. Although we might find, some kind of what you call ruptures if you want to provide a linear narrative of that.
Yeah.
That apart, I think this is a very important thing.
Yeah.
So I just want you to
all these domains, sociology, economics, maybe not anthropology, but they were emerging in his time. I mean, the sociology department and all that sort of, when he went to Columbia, it started. So yeah, and even there was no economics department in Columbia. It was called political science or something, and economics was part of it. So that's why even in Pune, we still have that Gokhale Institute of Political Science and Economics. There's no political science there. Political science was considered part of economics. So these are emerging fields. And in the emerging field, he takes all those fields, and then, but what he makes out of it is entirely his own. That is one of his characteristic traits, is that he quotes a lot of people. He quotes a lot of people, and he also misquotes a lot of people. But he's understanding everybody he's constructing his own knowledge. He's not just taking, John Dewey had a big influence on him, but what he takes from Dewey is very different from what probably Dewey would have recognized. So that requires both, I think, a great amount of courage, as we must admit, and also that intellectual capability itself, so that so many fields you are taking together, and in a pretty short time, just 2 years he was in Columbia. And then, of course, later he continued his reading. So it is and with none of the social network capital support we enjoy, we have people to talk to about these things. Whom could he talk to about this? There was nobody. He was a one-man show. It's, so like, in the sense, there were no Savarnas who were ready to talk to him. Only Gandhi was the only person who was ready to have a conversation with him. But Gandhi's reading was, let us say, very different from Ambedkar. Gandhi did not understand basic things like, fundamental rights. He had problem. Why? What is rights and all that? There are only duties and all that. So and in the Mahar community, well, at that time there were really no people of that caliber, who could speak to him. Later in life, his close circle who ran the educational institutions and all that were Savarnas. There were a group of Savarnas, a few of them, who were with him till the end. A handful, hardly about 10, 12. Yeah.
Another interesting aspect that you develop in the first part of the book is related to the question of democracy, the idea that you have just mentioned he develops from Dewey and then gives a twist of his own. But then I think he becomes, in a way, as you have rightly pointed out in your book, completely committed to this as an ideal. And even, he doesn't deviate from that. And then he wants his followers to understand the niceties of this particular idea, so that, they could look forward to a time when, even as they are fighting against inequalities and so on, at some point he would say that even he won't mind, using violent means, etc. It's not an end of all that, but if they were pushed to the wall, then the response will be like that. But here we find somebody who is really committed to the question of democracy, which I guess is really significant for our time.
So, if you look at it, at that time, or even today, who's talking about democracy in the sense of what does it mean? Yeah, so it was assumed that, British parliamentary system, we were under that, so then it comes to there was never a fundamental question like, should we have a democracy or should we have something else? There was some debate on presidential and parliamentary form of democracy, but it was taken as a given. So you have a Nehru who's believed to have been a great Democrat, but there is no thinking through of democracy. What does democracy mean in this country? And Gandhi had, I don't think, any significant input on that. So nobody is talking about what does democracy mean in this country. He is the only person who's talking then and even today who's talking about what does democracy mean. And he warned that, and he foresaw that it will be reduced to the elections and certain structures of political democracy. And he warned that that is not going to, that is necessary, but that is not going to lead to a democratic society. So and that is his last, he makes the Constitution of India. I mean, he had a great role in it. And it is really an irony at the end of it, at his last speech to the Constituent Assembly is like, it is all very fine, but we have to still start our job starts now. That this constitution we have created and all that is not going to give us anything much. Our job starts now. So, I mean, after making that document, after 2-3 years and all that, it's like, just imagine you go to an architect, he makes all the plans and all that, then he gives you the plan and says, now you keep it aside, now we have to start thinking. I mean, so what did you do for 3 years? So yes, so he didn't get maybe the time to theorize on this. And people love theory. So, but the sad part is that, what he said, no academics in India have taken forward that what seems like a gap. The theory of what a democratic society could be in the Indian context. He has given us clear directions. For example, he says that, a society with caste cannot be a democratic society. Caste has to go. That has to go. I mean, for many things. It's about barriers between people, it's about barriers in the mind and, and violence and basic stupidity. Caste makes you into a very stupid human being. So this is one aspect, but now we know that caste is not the only barrier to building a democratic society. So maybe we have to also talk about, class and other kinds of barriers that are social identities that come in the way, and how do we deal with different identities also. So there are issues that he didn't deal with, which are important. Let us not claim that his theory is complete. that there are, there are gaps to be filled, because his final solution is that everybody has to become Buddhist. So, but that is a very absolutist kind of solution. And, what about the people who don't want to become Buddhist? So that is a big question mark in his thought. And of course, I would say that by his way of thinking and all that, if these questions were asked, he would say that, damn it, you think, no. I mean, it is, when he, before Nagpur, he tells people that, you must, before you come and decide to become whatever a Buddhist, think through this. Think through this, and if it is okay with you, come. But of course, that was people were going to come anyway. But still, he did say, and even his, what his invitation was for the ceremony. He didn't say, there is a ceremony here and everybody should come. What is the invitation says? That on this day, I am going to convert to Buddhism and I am going to speak on it. That's it. It's up to you now. So it is up to us to fill some, there are definite gaps in his conception of a democratic society, but the basic ideal is very valid today. And for anybody who says, it's like, what else do you have anyway? Let's look at it that way also. What else do you have? What's in the mall? There's nothing in the mall. What is in the mall? In the mall, there is some kind of, so-called civilizational something which is basically getting rid of one large part of the population. And there is some lost left. What else is in the mall today of ideas? There is nothing really. So these kind of, that thinking about some fundamental issues like this, what does it mean to be a democratic society? What is a democratic person? These questions are very much valid, at least insofar as, let us say, something better comes along. Who knows? But right now, this is the best thing going.
Before we open up to the audience,
Yeah.
I mean, we have several questions and we don't have time to
Yeah.
go through that. So therefore, the best thing is to invite each one of you to read that book.
Yeah.
But doing before that, I just have a couple of things that Ashok Gopal himself opened up in this book. One is related to, for instance, he just speculates what would have been Ambedkar's take on religion had he been aware of Max Weber's writings, because Weber became available only later. Ambedkar comes before that. So he has very interesting kind of speculations when it comes to the question of the significance of religion in, generally in human affairs. And then, of course, the point which he stopped with. So that will really take us to this realm of religious negotiations that across India the Dalit communities had. And I'm sure that this particular question will take a long time for anybody to deal with. So possibly you want to leave it open or just...
No, I will, that is an important question. So, so there are the problematic aspects also. Huh? So it is like this. There are, he's a logical thinker, he's a lawyer, he's a very logical thinker. So he says, basically, why do people do good? What is the motivation? So, and where does this come from, the need to do good, to be civil to another human being? So he says, it's about the moral sense. So he asks the question, where does this moral sense come from? And he, because maybe his upbringing and whatever was available at that time, he did think that the moral sense comes from religion. That there could be not any other source of a moral sense. Now, I personally have a great problem about that. But anyway, but the point is not that he is still looking at religion in an instrumental way. His ultimate thing is that how does this sense of being a good human, where does this come from? So for that, and in the available, and of course he also recognizes, and we should recognize, that religion is an extremely powerful force very influential. And the going religion doesn't seem to support democratic ideas. So, and you can't then leave people in a vacuum. So there is this other religion which he reconstructs effectively and says, offers it. Which leads us to the sort of $1 million question. Suppose that option had not been there, what would he have done? And he was attracted to Christianity also. So yeah, so his basic thing is that he's struggling with the issue of that, how do you motivate people to be good human beings? So that is how he comes to the root of religion, and for that he thought that you don't need God and ritual and all that. But then all this is obviously problematic because in the common understanding, religion is about faith and worship and all that, and he himself is now become an object of worship. So those are the ironies and that remain, But his engagement with Buddhism, which we haven't had the time to talk about, but that just for information, next year there will be a book on this that I hope to complete soon. So his engagement with Buddhism is really a remarkable feat of imagination as well as rationality as well as imagination. There is imagination, there he takes leaps. So I do hope that will also continue to our interest and engagement with his thought. At the end of the day, you may say that, I'm not with this. But all the questions that he asks, you still have to find your answers. You may reject his answers, but you still have to find those answers. That why, how do we make people do basic civility? How does it come into this country that, somebody who's different from me speaks a different language, different caste, but I still have basic civility and I treat him I treat him with respect and I listen to him. How does this habit come, which is plainly lacking? Yeah. I mean, it's not, we can't say general statement. Obviously, it's, we are all trying in our own ways to be good human beings, of course. But overall, he was thinking about the whole nation. Yeah. So yeah, if we have time, maybe, or we go to the...
Yeah, I just have a part of my conversation, the last point. I have several last points, but I just leave them out. So in this book, interestingly, Ashok Gopal joins my tribe of people, historians, those who have been specializing in the social history of modern India and all that. So you have a great point where you offer a critique of the whole establishment of different varieties of historiographies.
Yeah.
Like the whole question for modern Indian historians have always been, how do we really understand nationalism?
Right.
How do we understand the question of, the entrenched hierarchies that existed in India, which had colonized for thousands of years, in Ambedkar's terms, quote-unquote, untouchables or Dalits. So here, do the historians have an answer to that? So my point is that historians seldom address this question, and you take it up as a very big thing. So you join issues with all these big names of historians in India. Yeah, I am not naming them. Maybe we begin with Bipen Chandra to Sumit Sarkar, all of these people, different genres of Marxist historiography, and also the liberal historians of India. You have great issues with all of them. And then there is a chapter where you refer to Ambedkar as historian of his time. As we don't have much time to discuss this, I think we need to really open up this, because that will take us to Ambedkar's engagement with Gandhi. You have beautifully written about that. So I just invite you to reflect on these questions.
Yeah. So about the, it's like this. So he writes a book on the origin of untouchability. And it's a theory which is not accepted by most people today. But, and he was quite aware of that probably, that this would be the reaction. But what is his starting point? He says, there is this problem of untouchability. You have to figure out why this started. Nobody has asked this question. And then he goes into why this question has not been asked. So one is the traditional orthodox Hindu who says this is the religion explanation. What about the others, so-called educated? Why are they not asking? So he says He actually says that Indian scholarship is casteist. There are no intellectuals in India. An intellectual is an emancipated human being. In his time, at least, he said there are no intellectuals. They are all casteist people. They are blind to this deliberately. They don't want to get into this thing. So his job is to ask these kind of. So the job of the historian is like the basic things around you. What is happening? Why the hell is this happening? And what are the historical roots for that? That is the basic job of a historian. And he has this other premise. They're saying that, because in terms of nationalist histories, he starts with, there's a narrative. British came, Mughals were there, and then the British came, and then Congress and all that, and they went away. Ambedkar's basic, objection to that narrative which was developing in his time was that, what difference is it going to make if this fellow goes and the other fellow comes? That is the question you have to ask, no? How can you assume that because that fellow went and this fellow comes, something else is going to happen? What is going to change? So therefore his engagement with colonialism is very different, because he doesn't see it as some big, that they will go, tomorrow India is going to become a different country. No. So he's a very free-thinking intellectual. He didn't even position himself as a historian, but he asked these questions and he developed propounded theories. And in that theory also, he says, that is the other thing. He says, I am giving you this theory, which he does in castes in India also. His first paper, he says, I am giving you this theory. If you got something better, I'll be the first person to drop this. So he's a complete scientist, He recognizes much before these terms came into play that knowledge is a continuous and a tentative process, and that we all are dealing with working truths only. So of course that is from the pragmatic tradition. So working truths. So there will be more and more working truths. So that is the spirit of continuous learning that he maintained till the end of the life. Yeah, that's how. I don't know whether that is exactly answering your question, but I have tried to understand for the last so many years that, what was his thinking, what was the way he's thinking. And there are many other things which I have not referred to the book, his other letters and all that. And you get this idea of that this is the way he used to think. And of course, this is also a hypothesis. This is also a hypothesis. Maybe there might be a better picture of Ambedkar after 10 years. Somebody else with the same evidence might come up with something else. That's fine. But for now, let's go with this and let's see how far it takes us. That's the best we have, I think, with Ambedkar or anybody else. Yeah. So now,
Hi.
the audience gets the fan, but not the... Yeah.
Hi, thank you for the amazing session.
Thank you.
My question is related to the later stages of Ambedkar, where he accepted Buddhism.
Yeah.
And I am very much into Buddhism also, and I see Buddha as an archetype who started this revolution against Brahminical dominance in
Right.
non-dualistic literature. So do you think that the need to bring religion into the caste struggle was important, and to identify ego as Brahminical system as a manifestation of ego, and the Dalit struggle as emancipation of
Yeah. So, see, his Buddhism engagement there is one thing we must remember. And, and when Ambedkar says something, it's like you have to take him on his face value. You can't say that, you can't do some kind of psychoanalysis. So actually, he wanted to say something. No. He was very clear, he was very blunt. So, his goal was Buddhist India. It was not just about Dalits. If caste has to go, apparently everybody requires a religion, so then you have to take this religion. That is a sort of a logic. But for the process of doing that, we must also recognize that he reconstructs He actually says there is a lot that is in the received tradition. Of course, he does it in a very wonderful way. He doesn't say the Buddha was wrong. He says, anyway, we don't know what the Buddha said. There's no way of knowing what the Buddha said. But Buddha followed some principles. So by those principles, there are certain things in the canon that could not have been said by Buddha. So he uses not textual analysis or something to reject parts of the canon, but some higher order principles. And so he rejects that this could not have been said by Buddha. And then he puts his own text, saying that this is what Buddha would have said. So this is, of course, as we know, the orthodoxy and all religions are orthodox, did not accept this. So the solution itself is highly problematic because reconstruction of religious texts is a very, it's an area that, but then, there is a thing that it is okay when you say that I am myself a spiritual, religious leader. I am starting a sect. Ambedkar didn't want to do that. No, he didn't say I am the new Buddha or something like that. He had to connect to the ancient tradition. Yeah, and he says I am just following his word. So there is all those issues are there, and that's why, of course, Buddhism never became a very widespread as he had imagined. But the interpretation is still very useful. And the points including that you have said about lack of a permanent self, all that, yes. That gives scope for, a lack of a permanent self gives scope for so many things. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So my question is to Sanal sir.
Yes.
Sir. Sir, actually it's not a question. While reading Annihilation of Caste in 2025, we can see there is not much change happened around our world. So I want your reflections on reading and rereading Ambedkar in the contemporary saffronizing India backdrop.
Okay, I just try to respond to what you have asked. If I understood correctly, you want me to talk about the whole question of annihilation of caste as was proposed at one point of time, and then what happens to the situation today. Now, I think we live in a very complex kind of situation where those who are offering a critique of caste would come out with different kind of ideas about the whole project of annihilation. Now, what are the ways in which this could be done? So, is it possible through the intercaste marriages and things like that? So, what are the ways in which you can do? So, or should we look at caste as something connected with very many other aspects of our society, economy, and all that? So, we really need to ask this very difficult question today. So probably you may not have a single solution to that. We really need to offer a critique of this in all possible practical ways so that we address the long-standing questions. In fact, in this book, you get reference to Ambedkar's own statements as how to get rid of the clutches of caste. He says that through education and also for the rural folks. Engage, so this is in the early 20th century, engaging in agriculture. So that was the kind of stuff which would have been easily available, although the question of ownership of land remained. So if it is today, so how best we can have control over the means of production? These questions go to that level. So it becomes really complex in a situation today where you have the neoliberal economy moving in a different way, which is buttressed by extremely regressive kind of political and social policies in India. Therefore, the challenge is really fundamental, and in many ways very complex than the early 20th century that we have as researchers, looking at that particular period of time. So possibly the struggle has to be waged in different fronts so that, this hydra-headed phenomenon of caste could be defeated. But then it is not easy.
Yeah, but
That's-
to-
yes,
the-
yes.
but there is one thing which everybody can do. There is one thing that everybody can. Ambedkar forces you to do. It forced me to do. We start by looking at caste in ourselves. Yeah, and we start by looking at caste in ourselves, and how caste affects our own being. And this is a very tough one to do because our education system silences caste. Caste is it's like the, drunk uncle whom you don't talk about, bad fellow. so, so caste is not discussed in the classroom at all. Caste is not discussed in social study sciences classroom at all. Caste is treated like an insect in a museum, and there is a lot of study theory. But the dialogue should be that let us now talk about how we are all victims of caste. That dialogue does not happen. So our job one is to keep mentioning caste. So that, it doesn't get erased, because God knows so many things are getting erased. If tigers can get erased and elephants can get erased, caste, that word also will get erased. So we have to keep alive this word and always say that, and not in a pointing figure, but saying that it is in all of us. And that was Ambedkar's genius when he talked about Brahmanism. He said, my problem is not with the Brahmins. My problem is with Brahmanism, and that runs through, all the way through, from top to bottom. Maybe the Brahmins started it, but it runs through all the way. So that is, like we used to say that what should we do? So one is like this. And of course, and how caste reflects in our lives and in our interactions is still an area of so much study is yet to be done. So much is yet to be done. If we just pretend that it is gone, then it is that is just living in a fool's world.
Sir, I just have...
Yeah.
Thank you for that preposition.
Yeah.
Caste is an angle, that drunken uncle we don't talk about. Okay, thank you, which I got just now. So I would like to have your reflection on, because Ambedkar was for annihilation of caste.
Yeah.
And down in Kerala, Sri Narayana Guru was also for annihilation of caste. Could you give us a reflection of that comparison?
Yeah, that is a tough one. That is a really tough one. I don't think a quick answer would be fair to both, because one has to look at many things. One has to look at some fundamental principles, one has to look at methods, and one has to look at the ideal society also, the notion of an ideal society. So if we see parallels there, then we can build, we have to look at that. So let's put it under. So he had issues with Marxism, right? But if you read him carefully, what is his problem? It's not about the fundamentals, and it's not about the goal. It's about the middle. And he had a certain understanding of Marxism, which was, of course, influenced heavily by what was happening in Stalinist Russia and all that. So it is like, to use the term which is used in Buddhism, so he always used the criteria. Buddha's Dhamma was, he advocated, because it's like good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. So if Narayan Guru's philosophy fits that, good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end, then it would be a match. Yeah. Yeah. So that this good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end is a famous Pali phrase. So, so Ambedkar's problem was in the middle. What Marxism? Yes, sir. Oh. By the way, we have a session with Teltumde. He's coming live at 6 o'clock, and we have to go there at least to show our solidarity. Okay. Please.
Yeah, sure. My question is very small.
Yeah.
I just need to know your opinion about something. The thing is, nowadays we are still talking about Ambedkar.
Yeah.
Yeah. The question is, nowadays the education is reaching wider community, even the root of the community, it is reaching. But still, the oppression is going against the lowest hierarchical people.
Right.
The suppressed people and the people are getting oppressed ones. Why it is not reaching the people at the bottom? The ideas of Ambedkar, it is just confined to the the people are still talking. This
Yeah.
small amount of people.
So there's a very quick answer. One is the silence in academia. One is the silence in academia, the silence in curriculum. Ambedkar is just a token figure in curriculum. How will ideas of people go to a large number of people? It goes through education, right? Mass education, through textbooks and all that. That is your first exposure with anybody. Fortunately, unfortunately, that is your first exposure to anybody. So that is, in our entire education system curriculum, I studied constitutional history and I knew nothing about Ambedkar. And it is supposed to be 4th ranked university in India and all that. So one is the silence in the curriculum. So combating that. The silences are at many places. There is a part which Anand Tendubre talks about, that is the excessive iconization of Ambedkar among Dalits itself. But I think that is not as big as a problem as the silence in the, the 90% silence is far more important than the, what you might say, hero worship of the 10%, no? What about the silence of the 90%? So the silence comes through and we are all part of it. Everybody in academia is guilty of this. That there are 100 opportunities to bring Ambedkar into the classroom and they should be taken. And so far, we have not heard about anybody getting arrested or shot for getting Ambedkar into the classroom. That day is not yet come. So we have to use these opportunities like this one. There is nothing. There is either you just sit quiet and go to sleep or you do whatever you can do. There are no quick bullets. Because the silence has been there for too long. It's like, just to finish, I was really surprised that when I got the opportunity to go, after this book, to go to various universities and all that and talk to people. I was surprised, sir, in many people in the humanities department telling me, and some of them are internationally well-known scholars, telling me that we learned so much from your book. I said, damn it. Ye kya hai? There is, I am not sort of invented something new here. All this is available material. And you are, international scholar. So that is our narrow-focused academia.
Yeah, with that, we come to an end of the discussion.
You have taken. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Question is very specific.
Right.
What is your authorship of the Constitution?
Yeah.
Authorship of the Indian Constitution.
Yeah.
How much was the intellectual and legal contribution of Ambedkar?
Yeah, this is a typical one, the Savarnas like to say that, Ambedkar did not write the constitution. Of course, one person can write the constitution. It was a huge consensual effort. And everything happened there was voting, but the Congress party, to its credit, tried to get unanimity on most points. And that is why issues like socialism were not introduced, because they would not have got unanimity. Ambedkar's great job was firstly the Rao's constitution. The new draft was virtually prepared by him, as told by all the other members of the committee who were, either dead or ill or had more important things in life. So they didn't contribute. And then the whole thing of piloting that, it was a clause by clause discussion. So anybody who wants to know what did Ambedkar do to the constitution, about the constitution, what did he do, I would advise them to read Baba Saheb Ambedkar Writings and Speeches, volume 13. It is available free. It is about 1,700 pages. It is only about Ambedkar's intervention, about on each clause, how he takes up each clause and explains to the members what does it mean. And then there are points where he educates the members that this is what it means and don't go that way and all that. And there are so many points where the assembly cannot decide. And the chair, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, says, we lost doctor. Let doctor decide. So, but let's also face it, let's not this thing. It was a Congress-dominated assembly. There was nothing that could have gone there without the consent of the Congress High Command. That is obvious. What is there to debate about that? Yeah. No, that is all. So the right word for him was that he was the principal architect. There were many architects. And there was given. There was also a given body of law. This was built on that. So, and he was part of that whole democratic process, and along with people who were his opponents all his life, and he worked with them, he showed how to be a democrat. Yeah, thank you very much.